Thank you very much. And thank you all for being physicians and healers of all sorts. I've been a family physician for over 30 years. I'm retiring next year and stuff, and I just think it's a fabulous opportunity to do something good with your life. But I know it's not totally easy for you, so I thank you for hanging in there and just bringing the best of who you are to your patients every day. It's a great thing to do with your life. I feel like I'm totally among friends. Yes, SIP stole Dave Herbert from us. He was one of the greatest leaders in the Permanente Medical Group. And then I hired John Hernreid, who I saw earlier this evening, and then he left me, okay? And then, does anybody know Jose Arevalo? He was one of my attendings in the 80s, and he's still looking great, and he left me and stuff. And then I met Dean, who's a physiatrist from the spine clinic, so I just feel like I'm totally among friends, and I hope we have a great time together. It's so funny, I was walking out to the bar just to get water, because Asians, we can't drink very much. And this couple walked by, and the gentleman said, yeah, I think they set this up so that you couldn't leave during the speaker time and stuff. You're sort of trapped in this room, and if you get up and leave, I hope you don't, but I'll call out your name, and Jose will stop you at the door. It's also my understanding that if you're here this evening and you check in, I think financially it's good for you, so you might as well stay, right? And this is much better than the food we serve at Kaiser Permanente. I mean, Dave, you had many, yeah. So thank Dave or whoever, or Danny. Who do we have to thank for this? Danny, is it you? It's really, really good, so thank you very much. Okay, I'm super happy to be here. The title of this talk is Choice is Destiny. I want to start off, let's see, is this working? Oh, I have to turn it on. Okay, here we go. I want to start off with a stretch, so if you could all stand up and join me in this. Okay, now, here's a picture of people stretching, and I hope that's your logo there, because I found it online. So first, you're going to reach up above you and try and touch all the things in life that inspire you, okay? The principles, the people, your role models, and all that. So it's fabulous. Okay, and that feels good. You can even get up on your tippy toes if you want, okay? Next, I want you to slowly come back to the neutral position. I'm 58 now, so you can't, if I move really fast, I pass out. So just come back to neutral, and then now lean forward and take your fingers towards your toes. You don't have to be able to touch them. You don't have to show off in front of everybody. But take your fingers towards your toes and just kind of remind yourself of all the things that hold you up in life, like your values or your principles, or once again, role models, things like that. Okay, now gently come up. And now I want you to turn towards the center of your table, okay, getting close. And then I want you to literally reach out and touch the people with whom you do this fabulous work as healers. Go, touch them in a totally appropriate place. Yeah, this is good. Okay, yeah. A little bit awkward there, that's okay. Okay, and then last but not least, now I want you to bring your hands in towards your hearts and touch your own hearts, and just make a commitment to reconnecting with your meaning and purpose this evening during our time together. So thank you very much. Give yourself a big round of applause. Have a seat. Oh, are we
draw a raffle?
Okay. Dave is afraid that you will not be enthralled by my talk, so interspersed we'll have raffle things. Okay, so I'm drawing a raffle.
And this is from the Medical Society, who's been here helping to support the joy of medicine. I hope you all are aware of that.
So once again, this is sponsored by the Medical Society, the fabulous SSVMS. Let's give them a big round of applause. They have a really nice table outside. And this is ticket number 384708. 384708. You must be present to win. Are you win? Okay, congratulations. Okay, and it's a little card, and you exchange that for a Tesla. Okay?
Coming from Dr. Herbert.
From Dr. Herbert. But it's the black one, the base model, because the color's a premium. It's $2,000 more. So, okay. All right, so let's move on here. Okay, now this is one hell of a good-looking picture, okay? And, it's really nice. I'm just going to sort of sit with you guys as I talk, because I have a mic. So this is my former colleague. We still miss you, Dave. And this is a quote from Dave. And Dave says, we have to be world-class taking care of ourselves so that we can be world-class taking care of our patients, which is just a fabulous aspirational goal, right? And I've always believed that, if you're burned out, how could you possibly be a great healer for your patients? You have to be well to provide world-class care. and to generate the wow experiences that your patients brag about in their cul-de-sacs and on the softball field and stuff. So anyway, I love that quote from Dave. But of course, in order to take world-class care of yourselves, you're going to have to make some good choices. Now, so I grew up in San Francisco, and you have to take a foreign language there, okay, like most places. And for reasons unclear to me, I took French. I took 5 years of French. Why is a Chinese guy taking 5 years of French? I should have taken Spanish. But when you go up in San Francisco, you don't know that Latinos live in California. So anyway, there aren't a lot. So anyway, you read a lot of French authors, including the existentialists, who, if you ever read them, it's very depressing, okay? They talk about things like l'amour, the wall, like all you know is that you're going to die, and you kind of base your life on that. And Jean-Paul Sartre was one of the people I read, and I pretty much didn't agree with anything he said except this quote, where he says, "We are our choices." And for an existentialist and then me, I was voted the most optimistic guy in my graduating class of 850 people. Like, I'm a polar opposite from Sartre, but I totally agree with him that it's the choices you make that determine your destiny in life. So I'm here this evening just to talk about some choices you might want to make to be, world-class healthy healers, so you can be good for your patients. Okay, so here's my first suggestion. My first suggestion is to be mindful. Now, everybody talks about mindfulness, but what is mindfulness? And I just love this slide, which is sort of a combination of a quote from Viktor Frankl and then some stuff from Antonovsky, who was this Yale-trained Israeli sociologist. So those of you who read, have read things like Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, and as you know, he was a physician and a World War II concentration camp survivor. So Viktor Frankl said that between stimulus and response, there's a space, and in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. Now, I'm going to have some fun with this slide. So this is a graph that I got from Antonovsky, and it's the spectrum of health. And when I give this to Permanente groups, I say, there's a lot of health here. This is Kaiser Permanente. And then I say, these are all the UC Davis patients over here, okay? So anyway, I actually say Sutter, but it's okay. I'm at Sutter. So then, on the spectrum of your life, there are a lot of stressors or life events, all right? And then those stressors cause tension. And then some people think that it's stress and tension that leads to burnout, but it's not. Stress and tension is actually a normal, healthy thing, but the place where we stumble is if we respond to our tension with a dysfunctional behavior. So like the stress and the tension happens, and then there's this space that Viktor Frankl is talking about, right? So if you're mindful, which means being in the present moment, like fully focused on the present moment, undistracted by regrets about the past or worries about the future, then when you're in that space, you can choose to respond to the tension with a healthy practice, and that would be salutogenesis, the origins of wellness. So we're here today to talk about some of the choices you might make. Oh, I also, I had the opportunity to sit down with Dave and Lori Gregg for a beautiful lunch in preparation for this talk, and they said, can you also talk about how we should worry about the things we can change, but not about the ones we can't? So it made me think of the Reinhold Niebuhr Serenity Prayer, which God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I think of that as like discernment. And I'm always praying and meditating for discernment for myself, because it's really hard to figure out which things you should spend time thinking about that you could actually change versus those which you cannot. Dave and I worked together for decades in the Permanente group. Some of the things you just ain't changing, okay? And you have to know that short list, otherwise you will kill yourself. All right, so, and then you think, well, is it important what you think or what attitude you have? And this slide suggests yes. So Kelly McGonigal is a health psychologist at Stanford, and she looked at this huge data set of 186 million Americans followed for about 8 or 9 years, and she found that in this study set, if a respondent checked that they had a stressful life, and they also checked a box saying that they believe a stressful life leads to bad health outcomes, in the study period alone, those people had a 43% increased risk of premature death, right? Not premature dermatitis or irritable bowel or onychomycosis. It was like death, dead, right? So, but what was interesting was that in the same study set, she found that if the respondent checked the box saying, yes, I have a stressful life, but they did not check the box that said a stressful life leads to bad health outcome, they had a 0% increased risk of premature death. And so my little family physician take-home message from this study is that if you come to work every day as an SIP physician saying, this job is going to kill me, it's going to kill you at a 1.43 increased relative risk, okay? But if you come to work every day saying, oh, you know, it's a really difficult job, but it's a meaningful career and I chose it and I love the mission, I love the people I work with, it's just going to be a hard, meaningful job as opposed to your source of premature death. Okay, so here are my recommendations for some choices you might want to make in your life. And they're just recommendations. I often liken this to if you buy a Swanson's TV dinner, I'm not saying I do because they're really not good for you, but say I did, and say you get the turkey dinner, okay? Well, do they show you a picture of a dry piece of turkey, like, you know, in the plastic container, you know, on a piece of newspaper? No. It's like turkey on a china plate with a tablecloth and a candle and wine, right? So in the corner of the cover, it says, this is a serving suggestion. Like, you don't have to follow it, but Swanson's turkey will taste a lot better if you serve it this way. So that's what I'm giving you this evening. They're just serving suggestions. You don't have to do it, but you should. Okay. And then I just kind of pasted in this little menu from the Chez Panisse Cafe. Has anybody been to Chez Panisse in Berkeley? Okay, yeah, it's kind of a famous restaurant. And downstairs, it's super expensive. But I'm a bargain hunter. The place you should go is to the cafe upstairs, okay? It's about 1/5 the cost, and it's killer good. And then you can brag by coming home and saying, oh, I was at Chez Panisse over the weekend. You just kind of drop that as if you were in the restaurant, but you're in the cafe. Okay, anyway, so these are some suggestions from this server. And we're going to go over these in detail, but in general, we're going to slow down and spend more time in the sweet spot, be grateful, embrace lofty values and goals, keep your body moving, adapt to change and suffering, and emerge a better person, invest in relationships, build a team of accountability partners, and forgive yourself and others for being less than perfect. I almost just swallowed some hamburger meat there. Danny will distribute the slide deck to anybody who wants it, so don't worry about taking copious notes. Not that anybody's doing that anyway. Okay, so choose to slow down. This is a picture of Christine Carter, who's a professor at Cal from the Greater Good Science Center. And this is Alan Jung, an internal medicine colleague of mine from San Leandro. And he hosted a regional teleconference featuring Dr. Carter. And she wrote this book called Sweet Spot. And you know, in summary, she said that in this overscheduled, overbusy world that we all live in America, and then to the max among healthcare providers, we need to dial back busyness and dial up what she calls strategic slacking. Have you ever heard of that? Well, see, because I know that this room is filled with all of the most obsessive, compulsive people from the 3rd grade, so you're unfamiliar with the term strategic slacking, but okay, so this is all of you. This is your life. You know, you did extra credit in the 3rd grade, which is abnormal, but it's how you ended up getting into healthcare and getting this great job, okay? Right? That's you, right? Okay. Yeah. But then over on the other end of the spectrum is a life of total ease, no rules, no nothing. These people never got into medical school or physical therapy school. They are all unemployed or dead, okay? But sometimes when you stay over here for your entire life, it's sort of like staying in first gear forever. Like there's a purpose to first gear, right? But if you stay in first gear for a long time, it revs really high, and you start chewing up your rods and your pistons, and then you fail. So Christine Carter says you might want to kind of go to the sweet spot in the middle. I apologize to all the lactose intolerant people here, but I worked at Baskin-Robbins in high school, and to me this symbolizes the sweet spot. Okay, now I'm a little older than most of you, but when I was growing up, there were a lot of advertisements for a product called Brill Cream. Okay, no familiar looks in the audience, but anyway, it's some sort of petroleum product, and their slogan was "A little dab will do you," right? The instructions don't say 60 grams of Brill Cream applied once daily. It's just like a little dab, and so that's sort of like what you should do with like stress and motivation. You don't want to do too much of it because it will drive you crazy. When I was in high school, a senior, like many of you, I was studying for AP exams, and I think I looked like a nervous wreck. So my friend Adam Chin, he looked completely calm, and Adam went on to be educated he went to Yale, then Stanford, and he was the graphic computer guy who designed the first Monday Night Football that flew out of the television screen at you. The guy's a genius, right? And even back in high school, he said, John, you look overly stressed. Why don't you just dial back your stress so that you're just motivated enough to make yourself study but not perform worse? And I thought, can you do that? Is it like a rheostat? Can you just turn it back? And those of you who've gone to like adult education courses have learned that, oh yeah, you can actually train yourself to be a little less stressed. You don't have to be a pre-med forever. You can't just stay in first gear forever. You'll burn yourself out. Now, I found like a lovely representation of this principle at the Whole Earth Festival in Davis a couple weeks ago. Did anybody go to the Whole Earth Festival? Okay, yeah, if you go, it just smells like marijuana, and it's a bunch of hippies walking around, eating on recycled plates. Anyway, so I found this. There's this mom and daughter from Sacramento, and they have this little business, and they sell things like this. It's this sloth, sporty as a sloth in sneakers, right? And I thought, this is kind of what I'm talking about, right? This is like, strategic slacking, like you want to work hard and get things done, like this sloth is going to scale a mountain, but you don't want to kill yourself doing it by being overly anxious. Turns out if you Google sloth sporty, there's just like a whole bunch of images of sporty sloths, so you can do that tonight when you go home. Okay, here's my next suggestion for a choice to make. Does this person look familiar to anybody? Yeah, this is Bob Emmons. Did anybody get here go to UC Davis for college? 2 of you, great, go Aggies. Are you enthusiastic about it? Yeah, okay, that's all right. Local school, it's good. Anyway, but in all seriousness, I'm from San Francisco, and my wife and all 3 of her siblings went to Davis, and I always tell people, sort of tongue-in-cheek but not really, that if you could choose the alma mater of your spouse, it should be UC Davis or Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Anybody here go to Cal Poly? Yeah, hands up for Cal Poly. Because those schools are filled with smart people, oftentimes good-looking and athletic, and they can carry on a conversation over a beer, okay? It's not all the super anxious Cal people who can't carry on a conversation. I'm from Cal, filled with a lot of weird people. So anyway, if some of you have kids, you tell them, I want you to marry somebody from UC Davis or Cal Poly. It'll be a good life. Okay, anyway, so this is Bob Emmons, psychology professor, and he's pretty famous because he's the editor of the Journal of Positive Psychology, and he did this collaborative research project with the physiatry dean's people, okay, at UC Davis. And what he did was they were working with patients with degenerative neurologic problems, and in the in the intervention group, they gave them gratitude journals. And they said the only assignment is to, when you first wake up every morning, write down 3 things you're grateful for. And the only rule is that you can't write what you wrote the day before, okay? So, and then in the control group, they didn't give them a journal and they didn't get to do anything. So what they found is that after 21 days of consecutive gratitude journaling, the intervention group had better health outcomes, better mood scores, and the family and friends' perception of the gratitude journalers was superior to that of the control group. And it was such a remarkable finding, because the only intervention was write down things you're grateful for in the morning, that he got a $5.7 million grant from the Templeton Foundation to scale it up, because they thought, oh, this is a great finding, but what if it turns out it's only for patients who have MS, right? Anyway, so I see Bob in downtown Davis every night. It's a very small town. I often see him at Black Bear Diner. Has anybody ever been to Black Bear Diner? Super good. You got to be careful what you order, but fabulous food. Anyway, so I say, Bob, how's the research going? And every time I see him, the response is the same. He says, John, easiest $5.7 million I've ever earned, right? He goes, no matter what cut of society, men, women, rich, poor, Midwest, Eastern Seaboard, the finding is always the same. In the intervention group where they do gratitude journaling, they're happier people. It's fabulous, right? And it's pretty much free. Okay, so choose gratitude. Now, I like to summarize Bob's research because it's voluminous research. So I summarize it like this. I say it's like making the transition from waking up every day and saying, woe is me. And to be honest, how many people in this room woke up this morning and said, woe is me? I did, right? Oh, I'm tired, I may have wet myself. Why is it the same person sleeping next to me that I fell asleep with last night? Why is it not somebody new? Anyway, all these things, right? So there are a lot of things. Or like, a lot of you are the breadwinner in the family. You wake up, you think, hey, how come I don't smell bacon? How come nobody's making me breakfast, right? And why do I have to make food for everybody? I'm the breadwinner. I'm the SIP person, right? So anyway, this is just, there are a lot of things that are bad. But what if you woke up and you pulled a Bob Emmons? And instead of waking up and saying, woe is me, you woke up and your first thought was, wow is me, right? Like I woke up. I woke up. I'm relatively dry, okay? I'm gonna tell, my brain's gonna tell my body, get up and go to the bathroom, and then, on the count of 3, you're gonna evacuate on your own terms. Now, those of you who are in primary care or neurology, I gotta tell you, do not take these things for granted. I mean, I'm getting a little older, things start happening, okay? Like, my doctor had to start me on Trazodone recently. It's a low dose, but I need something, okay? So, you got to be grateful. So wake up and send wow is me instead of saying woe is me, and just write down 3 things you're grateful for. Okay, so what I'd like you to do right now is I'd like you to all pair up with a partner at your table. Just try and pick one person. There might be a few groups of 3 here, but I'm going to give you 2 minutes total to turn to your partner and share something you're grateful for right now. I will call time at 1 minute, okay? So let the first person talk for a minute. Just share a story of something you're grateful for right now at this moment. Okay, I'll call time in a minute and you'll switch. Do you understand the assignment? Ready, set, go! Okay, so it turns out that no matter where I go, when I do that exercise and I look around the room, everybody's always fully engaged and smiling, and how fabulous is it to be grateful for something and then to take it up a notch and to share a gratitude story with somebody else. And how fabulous is it to hear somebody else's gratitude story, right? And that was just totally free, okay? And you could do that once a day and your life would be much, much better. Okay, I'm going to sit here now because it looked like these people weren't really paying attention in the first part, so. Okay, here's my next suggestion. Once again, these are just suggestions for good choices to make. The next one is choose lofty values and goals. So this is I have a daughter. Oh my God, who just said that?
I did.
How do you know Kevin?
Because I live in Davis and my kids go to Davis High and my oldest are the same age as his oldest. So.
Okay, so this guy is a superstar. Okay, so my daughter's 24, but 5 years ago she graduated from Davis High. And the students always pick a faculty person, right? Probably the easiest grader or something like that. And they chose Mr. Williams, and my daughter graduated from Davis High on the football field. It was like 108 degrees that day. And when you graduate and it's 108 degrees on the artificial turf, it's like 129 degrees, okay? So anyway, everybody's dying. Nobody's listening to the speaker. I mean, the students aren't, but I'm listening, okay? And Mr. Williams says, my only hope for you, Davis High graduates who all think you're going to be Bill Gates or something, is that at some point in your life, you will have the opportunity to work with other people for a cause greater than yourself. Is that like a fabulous wish for a high school graduate and stuff? And so that's called choosing lofty values and goals, right? It's just beautiful. Now, I'm going to read this to you. It's lengthy, but it's worth every word of it, okay? I don't subscribe to the New York Times because I'm a little frugal, but I do read my 5 free articles a month, okay? And I stumbled upon this one. And this is by David Brooks. He's one of the columnists. He's thought to be one of the more, conservative columnists in a pretty liberal paper. Anyway, so it's called The Moral Bucket List. So David Brooks says, about once a month, I run across a person who radiates an inner light. These people can be in any walk of life. They seem deeply good. They listen well. They make you feel funny and valued. You often catch them looking after other people, and as they do so, their laugh is musical and their manner is infused with gratitude. They're not thinking about what wonderful work they're doing. In fact, they're not thinking about themselves at all. When I meet such a person, it brightens my whole day. But I confess I often have a sadder thought. It occurs to me that I've achieved a decent level of career success, but I have not achieved that. I have not achieved that generosity of spirit or that depth of character. A few years ago, I realized that I wanted to be a bit more like those people. But I realized that if I wanted to do that, I was going to have to work harder to save my own soul. I was going to have the sort of moral adventures that produce that kind of goodness. I was going to have to be better at balancing my life. It occurred to me that there were 2 sets of virtues, the resume virtues and the eulogy virtues. The resume virtues are the skills you bring to the marketplace. And I would just say parenthetically that this room is filled with people who get an A+ in resume virtues. All right? But the eulogy virtues are the ones that are talked about at your funeral, whether you were kind, brave, honest, or faithful, were you capable of deep love. We all know that the eulogy virtues are more important than the resume ones, but our culture and our educational systems spend more time teaching the skills and strategies you need for career success than the qualities you need to radiate that sort of inner light. And many of us are clearer on how to build an external career than on how to build inner character. But if you live for external achievement, years pass and the deepest parts of you go unexplored and unstructured. You lack a moral vocabulary. It's easy to slip into a self-satisfied moral mediocrity. You grade yourself on a forgiving curve. You figure as long as you're not obviously hurting anybody and people seem to like you, you must be okay. But you live with an unconscious boredom, separated from the deepest meaning of life and the highest moral joys. And gradually, a humiliating gap opens between your actual self and your desired self, between you and those incandescent souls you sometimes meet. And I love this essay. I'm very into funerals, actually. My dad was a minister. I somehow grew up going to a lot of funerals. I sort of paid attention to what they were saying. And what always struck me is that there's always an open mic time at a funeral, right? Like, oh, if any family or friends of Bob want to get up and say something, you know, and people, you go to some funerals, and everybody says the same thing, and it's all really good. And that makes me think that was really that person, okay? And then sometimes you go to a funeral, and it's really awkward because hardly anybody goes up to open mic time, and the things they say are not very flattering, and they're very inconsistent. And that's like, that was probably a resume virtue person, right? As opposed to the eulogy virtue. So oftentimes, I think people go into medicine totally, eulogy value people, but then we sort of get caught up in all the competitive thing to get into medical school and to try and look better than everybody else, and then you kind of get caught up on the reimbursement system and the patient complaints, and then you kind of lose sight of what you're trying to do with your life. So just kind of a little reminder, just think about what do you want people to say about you after you die, and then work backwards, right? And it's just, for me, it's a nudge to move away from the first gear of my life, which is more resume oriented. Okay, choose movement. Everybody get up, please. And we're going to do a little exercise here. Yeah. Oh, ooh, bad. Okay. Now, who knows the song Head, Shoulders, Knees, and Toes? Anybody know that? John, can you come up and help lead that? Okay, and then also, okay, Dr. Vaughn, Dwayne Vaughn, can you come up too? Let's give them a big round of applause, Dwayne and John. Okay, so I'm going to put the mic down, and we'll split up the room. John, you go over there. Dwayne, you're here, and then I'll be over here. We're going to do head, shoulders, knees, and toes twice, okay? First time kind of pedestrian, and the second time we're going to ramp it up the way SIP people know how to do it. Okay, ready? Head, shoulders, knees, and toes, knees and toes. Head, shoulders, knees, and toes, knees and toes. And eyes and ears and mouth and nose. Head, shoulders, knees, and toes, knees and toes. Second time, a little bit faster. Let's outdo TPMG. Head, shoulders, knees, and toes, knees and toes. Head, shoulders, knees, and toes, knees and toes. And eyes and ears and mouth and nose. Head, shoulders, knees, and toes, knees and toes. Yay! Thank you for your help. Thank you for your help. That was fabulous. Okay, don't sit down yet. Don't sit down yet. Get back up, okay? So some of you say, oh, I'm a busy physician. I'm a busy physical therapist. I don't have time to exercise. You don't understand what my life is like. I actually do understand what your life is like. So one of our buddies, Jim Voigtlander, one of our physician leaders, orthopedists, he goes, yeah, I'm pretty busy too. Sometimes I start in the OR, 5:36 in the morning, and I can't get to the gym. So what he does is during his breaks, he does two things that we're going to do together, and I'll put the mic down, but I'm just going to scream, okay? So the first thing he does is shadow boxing, okay? So you got 3 minutes waiting for your next case, or you're waiting for a patient, and he goes like this. Everybody to the right, like this, okay? Go like this, okay? Like you're shadow boxing, okay? Good. Okay, now go to the left, like this. With a little energy, please, a little energy. Now back to the right. Okay, now jab, jab, jab with the right. Jab, jab, jab. Now back to the left. Jab, jab, jab. Jab, jab, jab. Now you're thinking, this is not even exercise, it's so easy. You try and do this for 2 minutes straight, you're going to start sweating in your armpits. This is exercise, okay? Okay, that's good. Now you're thinking, hey, I don't want to get all big on top and all wimpy down below, okay? So Jim Voigtlander, sometimes in his little break, he'll just do some knee bends or squats, okay? So do that with me. Do this, okay? Ready? Down, up, down, up, down. Okay, like you mean it, like you mean it. Now, some of you are thinking, oh, this is also so easy. You do this for 5 minutes straight, there's going to be blood on the floor, okay? So anyway, whenever you think, oh, I don't have time to exercise, time to move, just do these little 2-minute things. You do this 2-minute thing 10 times a day, that's 20 minutes. You do it 5 days a week, that's 100 minutes. That's 2/3 of your 150 minutes a week of activity, right? Okay, good, thank you. I was going to keep going, but Dr. Serdahl in back looked lightheaded, so I had to stop. By the way, can we give it up for Chris Serdahl, the president of the Medical Society, right there. Awesome ophthalmologist, great dresser, tremendous skier and golfer, all-around good guy. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, now some of you are saying, oh, I don't want to join a club, that's really expensive. I don't look good in spandex and stuff. I can't exercise. You don't have to join a club to be active. What if you just did all your own house chores, okay? How many people in the room wash their own car? Yeah, we're rocking it, right? First of all, we're saving money and we're getting some exercise. Wax on, wax off, okay? Wax on, wax off. So yeah, just do your own gardening, trim your trees, wash your cars, sweep your front. Don't use those blowers. I'm pretty sure those are killing the environment, okay? And you're just blowing it to your neighbor's property, and they know that, so they're just blowing it back to yours, okay? Okay, so both my parents are passed, but they used to live in this retirement center, Piedmont Gardens in Oakland, and I would give them talks every now and then. So one night I was giving a talk, and I said, oh, can I just have a show of hands of all the people in the room today who exercise on a regular basis? I'm sorry, I wasn't asking you to do that, but thank you. You're the third grade compulsive person, that's good. But this was the answer. Like movement, sort of, there are a lot of research that says it results in better health and longevity and better moods and stuff. So move. But thank you to the 5 of you who raised your hands. You're halfway listening. That's good. Okay, here's my next suggestion. Okay, what other table's looking kind of sleepy over here. This gentleman's sitting by himself. He's definitely going to fall asleep, so I'm going to speak from here. Okay, so Philip Ford. Thank you very much. Okay, so here's another suggestion for something to choose. Choose to adapt to change and suffering and emerge a better person. So I've been working in physician wellness for a long time now, and I can't tell you how many people come to me and say, I'm burned out because I suffer a lot, okay? And then they tell me their particular woe and stuff, which I'm very interested in because I'm in primary care and stuff. But I want to share this quote from John Gardner. John Gardner was part of President Johnson's cabinet. Some of the younger people in the room don't even know that we had a President Johnson, but after President Kennedy, who you've all heard of, was killed, President Johnson became president. Anyway, so John Gardner was part of his cabinet, and he helped to roll out a lot of big federal programs, but he wrote this for the Western Journal of Medicine in his late 80s. He said, for many, this life is a vale of tears, for no one is it free of pain. But we are so designed that we can cope with it if we can live within some context of meaning. And given that powerful help, we can draw on the deep springs of the human spirit to see our suffering in the framework of all human suffering, to accept the gifts of life with thanks, and endure life's indignities with dignity. And the reason I think that this quote is so powerful to physicians and why it showed up in the Western Journal of Medicine is because oftentimes physicians who are struggling think that they're suffering, either that they're the only ones suffering or that they're suffering alone, when in reality, all of their colleagues are suffering, and we should sort of do it together because it's something we share in common and stuff. And then, those life's indignities in clinical medicine, I mean, we could go on for days talking about what they are. For me, it's the indignity of doing my very best and then getting negative feedback, right? Has that ever happened to you? Like you're on call for cardiology, you make extra effort, you come in from home, you not only do a great job, but extra hand-holding, here's my cell phone, give me a call. A week later, formal patient complaint, or an unintended bad outcome. I mean, these things happen to us, and they're not even like 1,000 paper cuts. It's sort of like a lot of little stab wounds, and you build these up over decades, and a lot of people struggle with that. One thing I'm trying to do in my group is in this coming year, in my final 12 years of the group, I have this talk called The Fall and Rise of the American Physician, but I talk about how in the first half of our lives, we all just armor up and we try and look perfect because that's how you get into medical school and your residency and this job. But then I say that the career is so hard that you have to shift into a second gear of life where it's all about mutual vulnerability and supporting one another. We recently had a shareholders day and we had Vivek Murthy come and speak, and he used to be the Surgeon General, just like super duper human being. And the former Surgeon General got up there and said, there are many times in our careers as physicians when we feel inadequate and unworthy. And I thought, oh my God, this good-looking guy, Surgeon General, he felt that way too. It wasn't just me. And so he said that, and he says it's imperative that in these moments during our long careers that we reaffirm one another, right? He said you have to be there for one another, because if you're not a physician or a PA or a physical therapist, you don't know what the people are going through. Only the people you do this work with know, and you have to be there for one another. So it's really funny. The other speaker was Daniel Pink. He's kind of famous, and like 5 people lined up to talk to Daniel Pink afterwards. But after Vivek Murthy spoke about vulnerability and the need to support one another, like the queue was 50 people long, and everybody was crying. Like this is the big issue in medicine. It's not Daniel Pink and autonomy and clinical. It's Vivek Murthy and his story of how we all hurt, and the only way that we're going to make it through this is to support one another. So I've been practicing over 30 years, and a guy I hired is on the QA committee. He emailed me 6 months ago. He goes, John, it's kind of awkward, but I need to let you know that the QA committee is looking at one of your cases. I said, oh, okay. And then he emails me back a month later saying, we've rendered a P2 verdict against you. I said, oh, well, what does that mean? He goes, well, that means that you didn't have very good judgment on this phone triage you did. A patient had seen 3 doctors, 5-minute conversation with me, saw another doctor, and whatever. I said, oh, P2, like, it's on a scale of 1 to 10, like, is 10 horrible and P is like not too bad? He goes, oh no, P2 is the worst ruling in QA. I said, like wrong side surgery? He goes, yeah, it's in the same magnitude of wrong. I said, but the patient's alive and walking around. He goes, that's just the way it is. And I was so embarrassed and ashamed that I couldn't even tell anybody for like a month. And finally, I just started talking about it with people. And some friends of mine who had served on QA said, oh yeah, I'll listen to that. And yeah, you're okay. And then last week, I was giving a talk to our head and neck surgeons in Sacramento, and I told people about that. And my good buddy Brian Rubenstein, who's this fabulous head and neck surgeon, he's done all these international missions. I said that, and then he turned to me and he said, oh, I've had one of those. Don't worry about it. Anyway, but the whole point being that how many of us just suffer in silence when there's a bad outcome or things aren't going well at home, or you didn't pass your maintenance of certification thing and you have to, right, to bill. Like, these things happen to us, but we're all afraid that if we have a little chink in our armor, which I can say because I'm Chinese, we're afraid that if you have a little chink in your armor that you're not worthy of being an SIP physician, and it's just not true. I mean, the truth of the matter is it's a really long, hard career, and we're all in it together, and we should do it together as a corporate body, right? It's sort of like Mr. Williams said, right? He didn't say, I hope you're all superstar prima donnas on your own. He said, I hope that you have the opportunity to work with other people for a cause greater than yourself, for something really important, right? So I think you just need to support one another. Has anybody ever heard of the Japanese art form kintsugi? Yeah, it's this really cool thing, okay? So in the old days, before there was Target, like now, if we break something, you just go to, you break a bowl, you go to Target, you get a whole set of 20 for $10. But in the old days, like, there's no Target. So the Japanese had this thing of, you break a ceramic, and then what you do is you put it back together, and then you use gold dust to accentuate the cracks in the art. And the whole thing being that the resultant piece of art is more beautiful than the original piece. And it's a fabulous metaphor for our lives, right? Because we lead these broken lives, and some people, they have breakage and they suffer and they crumble, but others emerge from their suffering as more empathetic people, with some fabulous people who reached out to them, with a new understanding that they only have because they themselves suffered. So I don't think I have it in the slide deck, but I think it might be the next slide. I don't even know it's in my deck until I click it. But Kubler-Ross says, it's those who have suffered and experienced hardship that are the most compassionate and empathetic. And aren't those fabulous things for physicians and healers, to actually be empathetic and caring? And sometimes you can only get there by suffering. So I would never wish suffering on any of you, but I guarantee you that many of the best elements of you, the things the patients like most about you, the backstory to those things is a story of suffering that you endured earlier in your life. There she is. So I'll skip this slide, but yeah, it's just beautiful, right? So the most beautiful people we have known are those who have known defeat, known suffering, known struggle, known loss, and have found their way out of the depths. These persons have an appreciation, a sensitivity, and an understanding of life that fills them with compassion, gentleness, and a deep love and concern. Beautiful people don't just happen. My next suggestion about a good choice is choose to invest in relationships. This picture in the upper right-hand corner is Richard Swenson. He's a family doctor from the Midwest, and he wrote this book called Restoring Margin to Overloaded Lives. And he said that in the Western world, our patients and our lives, they're so overscheduled and so impacted that everybody's unwell. And so people come into his office like they come into mine, asking for an upper for the day and a sedative for bedtime. Right? That's a very common request. And he says it's because people are looking for wellness and joy and meaning in all the wrong places. Like they're just trying to, buy cars and move into the right neighborhood, get their kid into the right school. But those have never been the sources of wellness. He says the sources of wellness have always been relationships. And your relationships with others is called your social life. And your relationship with yourself is called your emotional life. Your relationship with God is your spiritual life. And then he didn't say this in the book, but I added this because a lot of people told me to. Your relationship with nature, I call it your Grizzly Adams life, but a lot of people really feel good when they're in nature. Like, have you ever hiked like the Pacific Crest Trail? It's like magical. Or gone snorkeling in Hawaii, magical, right? So if you don't feel well, it's maybe because you're not investing in relationships. Now, there are some people who only believe something if it comes out of Harvard University, so this is why I have this slide. So if everyone agrees it's about relationships, there's the book Margin. You should buy it. It's fabulous. And then we teach this resilience course at my work called Beyond KP. It's a day-and-a-half resilience course, but there's a whole module on building your support networks. But here's the Harvard study. It was over 75 years, and they said their conclusion is that good relationships keep us happier and healthier, period. Like it trumps income, social status, zip code, alma mater. Like nothing drives happiness more than deep, sustained relationships. So we have this little thing where I work. It's called Connect the Dots. It's like a mini Ballant group. And this is where we come in small groups sort of confess all of the emotional woes that get us stuck in our patient care relationships. And everybody's just, we get in a group, one person shares, the other people in the group sort of, talk about the emotions involved in a long medical career, and then you kind of all leave saying, hey, I'm not the only person, and other people experience the same, and we can support one another and make it through, but only by working together. Oh, so it turns out that it's not just doctors. There's this book called Bowling Alone. It's written by a sociologist, but it's talking about how in America we've sort of devolved to this situation where instead of living that went off for a minute. Instead of living in community, we sort of live in isolation, and it leads to a lot of depression and suicide and things. So, because, does anybody here bowl? Like, I love bowling, but the sport itself is a really horrible sport, and you have to wear those stinky shoes, but I always have a great time, because you always bowl in community, right? You always bowl with friends, and high five, because you finally got a ball out of the gutter and stuff. And the same is true with clinical medicine. Clinical medicine was never intended to be practiced in isolation. It was always intended to be practiced as a group, as a corporate body. So that's really important. So Claire Pomeroy used to be the dean at the School of Medicine here, and she's now the president of the Lasker Foundation. But she actually wrote this essay in Scientific American a couple of months ago about this national epidemic of loneliness and how it's affecting our nation's health. It's a real deal. So this is Dr. Murthy, and this was his direct quote. We're all going to have moments of doubt. I have them. I was a Surgeon General, and I have them. I'm sure you have them, where we wonder if we're actually enough, if we're the right person to do the job and get it done. And it's in those moments that we need to reaffirm each other. Like that was his number one recommendation to our entire medical group. Reaffirm one another like nobody else can. Has anybody heard of the Blue Zones? The Blue Zones are the 5 places in the world where people live to the age of 100 at a rate 10 times that of Americans. And it's not because they have more MRI scanners per capita or they have more access to, atorvastatin. It's not because they're closer to Sutter or Kaiser Permanente. It's just places in the world where people engage in the habits that are known to prolong life and improve happiness. And one of the things they do is is they make deep investments in social groups. So like this is Okinawa, where when people are born, they're immediately placed into a moai, which is your peer group for the rest of your life. So you grow up in school together, you get educated together, you marry together, you have kids together, career development, old age, death. You just do it together because life was never meant to be lived in isolation. And here's my suggestion. Wayne Sotil is a wellness expert. He says the quality of personal relationships is one of the most powerful predictors of physician resilience. And these are pictures of the two sides of my family, and 3 out of our 4 parents have passed away after having great lives. And so my suggestion to you is if you're part of a family, make sure you invest time in them on a regular basis because they're not here forever. Like I know in medicine we think that we're immortal and that we can make people live forever, but people die, right? Everybody dies. So make sure you invest in the people you love on a regular basis. And then I love this slide in the lower right-hand corner. It's a picture of me and my poker group. We've been in a group for over 25 years. I'm a Chinese Democrat, family doctor from Davis. These are all white Republican males, okay? But somehow we've been playing. So 5 years ago, I said to my wife, I got to get it out of this group, okay? It's like these guys spend a lot of money, so I'm losing money. There's a lot of cussing. There's a lot of alcohol. There's smoking going on. And I said, I need to leave this group. And my wife turned to me and she said, oh, there's no way you're leaving that group. She said, if you, John Chuck, were only friends with people who are just like you would have no friends. So my whole point about showing this slide is that you need to build these overlapping social networks, including people who are unlike you. Because I got to tell you, many people, including the 3 members of my family, so distraught after the last presidential election, right? Not me. You know why not me? Because I'm in the poker group, okay? These guys are my bridge to that. And you know what these guys told me? They said, hey, he goes, now you know how we felt for the past 8 years, right? So I totally get that. I'm really not distressed by the fact we have different. I mean, he's just taking his turn, right? So this is why you need to have friends who are unlike you, because you'll be a lot less stressed and you'll be a lot more connected to the world. I'll tell you what my friends say. They say, we build great companies that employ people with fabulous salaries and benefits that they can do to buy homes and donate to their synagogue and church and whatever they want to do. I don't know if it's true, but that's what they say. So I'm going with it. Okay, here's a social life bonus tip. We're talking about some pretty weighty issues here, so I suggest that you consider engaging in a counseling relationship. It really works. So this is me getting my quarterly 1-hour EAP sponsored counseling from Marisa Pierce, who's a marriage and family therapist, and I'm trying to help destigmatize coaching and mental health services, because I think this is the one type of coaching and counseling that actually makes you more fun to live with. Like, you keep bragging to me about your Pilates instructor and your vegan coach, but that just makes you a more miserable person for me to live with, okay? But if you want to go see a counselor who could work with you on your borderline personality and stuff, I would like you more. So if for no other reason, seek a counselor so I will like you more. Okay, choose accountability partners. And I stole this from Steve C., who's a life coach over there, and you'll hear about Steve, but he said, choose accountability partners who have your best interests at heart, are willing to speak the truth, and encourage you and fill you with positive energy. These are 4 of my accountability partners. My last suggestion is choose to love yourself and others, warts and all. So it's the feelings that really give it. This is a book that my niece, who's a surgery intern at San Diego now, they made her read when she was a student at Davis, but it's what doctors feel. So Wayne Sotil says we kind of have this obsessive-compulsive superperson syndrome thing, and that really sets us up for failure and burnout. So we have to be forgiving of ourselves. We also have to forgive others. So my ancestors, Chinese people, said a man who opts for revenge should dig 2 graves. And Nelson Mandela, not an ancestor but a good person, says resentment is like drinking poison and hoping your enemies will die. It doesn't work that well. These people who you really resent and stuff, they don't even know you exist, by the way. They forgot you long ago, but you haven't been able to let them go. Who loves Brene Brown? Anybody love Brene Brown? Huge fan. You should Google her. But she's a very popular sociologist from Houston who talks about things like vulnerability and shame, a lot of YouTube hits and stuff. But she says, like Richard Swenson, she says we're disconnected from joy and meaning, so we try and numb ourselves by buying things and eating those 800-calorie Costco cupcakes and drinking booze and taking Ambien. But she says a better solution is this, wholehearted living. Like, you should love yourself, and you wake up each morning thinking, well, after you do your gratitude journaling, you say, my best efforts today will be enough. And then you go out and you do a bang-up job at, for Sutter and your patients, and then you go to bed believing, yep, I'm imperfect and vulnerable and sometimes afraid, but that doesn't change the truth that I'm also brave and worthy of love and belonging. Even after, you get a P2 ruling, I'm still a good doctor, I think. Okay, so everybody stand up. We're going to do a little vegan self-affirmation, okay? So I want you to stand up and wrap your arms around your body. Okay, I'll get up front so you can see me. Oops, okay. Yeah, okay, so you wrap your arms around your body. Avocado has no arms. And then you repeat after me, okay? You sort of sway back and forth and repeat after me. I'm smart enough. I'm good enough. And gosh darn it, people like me. You got more conviction. And gosh darn it, people like me. Yeah, that's good, okay? Very good. Okay, I'm going to finish up sitting next to some Asian brethren here. I feel more comfortable around them. Okay, now, so it turns out, and I just want to celebrate now SIP and also the Medical Society, okay? Well, okay, so it turns out some of you are already doing this super well. You're kind of, leading a balanced life where you have a lot of joy and meaning. And one of them is Bill Chima. Is Bill in the house? Where are you, Bill? No way. Okay, next slide, please. No. So Bill is a physician, and actually, Danny, can I share what you told me? Okay. So Bill is Danny's parents' doctor, and he's a fabulous doctor. I just wanted to say that. But he also has these other interests, right? He works on the Mind Game, which is a local, sports injury concussion group, and then, he collaborates. He's the chief medical officer for this little device that helps to measure, the impact of concussion. They have these pilot projects going with Sacramento Republic and Major League Baseball, and he collaborates with William Jessup, and UOP. So he's sort of creating this world that's balanced where it can help mitigate some of the burnout he might be feeling, right? So there are those among you who are doing things to build your wellness and joy and meaning. And so just look around you. I once heard Chip Heath speak, and he's a professor of business at Stanford, and he wrote this book called Switch, How to Change When Change is Hard. And he said that whenever there are great challenges in society or whatever, there's always somebody or some groups that are responding better, and he calls those bright spots. And the responsibility of a group like SIP is to be a bright spot, or to recognize a bright spot, and then to share the bright spots, share the best practices so they can be widely integrated into who you are. Okay, so last two slides, and then I'm going to give it back to Dave. So it turns out that your local medical society, of which Chris Serdahl is the president, is, I swear, I'm not kidding, they are the best medical society in all of California. Yeah, give them a big round of applause. So they coordinated this fabulous, comprehensive, all-inclusive physician wellness program for this region. And it's just a gift they're giving you. And it's generously sponsored by Sutter and all of the major medical groups and hospital systems in the region. And they've been running it now for a while, and it is fabulous. And here are some of the things they do, okay? So, I was just interviewed for one of the podcasts. They have this fabulous series of podcast where they've interviewed local physicians who talk to you about different things, including ways that they find joy and meaning. There are physician peer groups that meet, and they have facilitators who are life coaches or counselors. Okay, so Angela Angela led a session in El Dorado Hills recently, and Steve led one in Roseville, if I got the locations correctly. So this is sponsored by the Medical Society. It is free to you. And Chris Serdahl has hosted one in Yolo County. He says it's rocking it. And I have colleagues from Kaiser, and there are Sutter people and UC Davis people that go. It's a fabulous place to go with physicians from all different groups, all different specialties, and just to resonate about what is it like to be a physician and how can we work together to have joy and meaning as opposed to just burnout and stuff. Okay, and also through the Medical Society, you can get free sponsored one-on-one counseling. I mean, it's really, really cool. And then there's a Joy of Medicine Summit every fall. I think this year it's the 4th Saturday in September. But fabulous. They always have really good speakers. We're going to have another killer lineup this fall and stuff. So this is all the local medical society. So can everybody in the room who's involved in SSVMS or this Joy of Medicine program please stand? Give them a big round of applause. And we have our SSVMS people in back. Yeah, totally great. It's a fabulous local resource and stuff. Let's see. I think that might be my last slide, but let me see. I'm never sure. Okay, it was. So with that, can I please ask the great Dave Herbert to take the microphone and give it up for Dave.